Welcome back, class. We're going to continue on in the book of Proverbs today. We're going to look at chapters 4 and 5. And chapter 4 is an exhortation to acquire wisdom. The appeal to acquire wisdom is similar to several other passages in the first 9 chapters. So we'll come back to it over and over. Wisdom gives life, it gives protection, it gives honor. The instruction here is valid because of its enduring quality, and it's valuable because it honors of the honor it brings. So we'll start with the first 2 verses of chapter 4.
Listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching.
The father's exhortation begins with the command to listen. I guess children back then were like children now. You got to get their attention before you can teach them anything. So his first exhortation says, okay, shut up, listen. And usually the words were addressed to my son, but here it's plural, my sons. The next thing he says is pay attention, and he repeats that as well. The word that we normally translate Torah to be is law, but here it's properly translated teaching. Now let's look at the 3rd through the 6th verses.
For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you.
Solomon spoke of his boyhood when his parents, David and Bathsheba, taught him. He was their only child at that time. Later he had 3 brothers, but he was the only one at that time. And verses 4 through 9 in this 4th chapter quote from Solomon's father David. By quoting the words, Solomon was passing on the instruction that he had gotten from his parents to his sons. 3 generations involved here illustrate Deuteronomy 6:4. And we're going to look at that verse. I'm sorry, it's 6:1 and 2.
These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life.
David had urged young Solomon to obey his words wholeheartedly so that he would live. And maybe David's encouragement to Solomon to get wisdom helped influence Solomon to ask God for it. And he did that in 1 Kings 3:5 through 14, which Melanie's going to read for us.
At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child, and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me, and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life."
Wisdom was to be pursued and valued because wisdom is personified as a woman again, she protects and guards. Verses 7 through 9.
The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head, and present you with a glorious crown.
As stated in the third chapter, 13th to 15th verses, nothing can compare with wisdom. Therefore, it is supreme, well worth all the effort and cost involved in acquiring it. As wisdom is valued and loved, she gives honor and an attractive life, pictured as a beautiful wreath and a crown of splendor. The opposite is also implied. A foolish, unwise life is dishonorable, unattractive, and shameful. Solomon experienced both wisdom and folly, and therefore both kinds of results. We're going to now look at the 10th through the 19th verses, which discuss the value of wisdom in preserving from trouble. The ways of wisdom and of wickedness are described, and the son learner is again urged to pursue the former and avoid the latter. The lesson is summed up in verses 18 and 19 by picturing the destinations of both parts. Now let's break them down. Verses 10 through 13.
"Listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I instruct you in the way of wisdom, and lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction, and do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life."
Once more Solomon addressed one of his sons, urging him to listen, because heeding his father's words would give him a longer life. Straight paths, here in verse 11, are unrestricted paths, which are easier to walk. The thought is amplified in the 12th verse. One's steps are not hampered. Literally, in Hebrew, that would mean narrowed or cramped. In other words, he's not in distress when he's walking straight paths. The crooked, devious path of sin is the way of problems and hardships. Again, an eager acquiring of wisdom is encouraged because it gives life. Verses 14 to 17.
"Do not set foot on the path of the wicked, or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it, do not travel on it. Turn from it and go on your way. For they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep till they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence."
In verses 14 and 15, 6 urgent commands are given to steer clear of the path of the wicked. And verses 16 and 17 state the reason for the urgency in the previous verses. Wicked people are so taken with evil that they are unable to sleep until they have hurt someone. Sin is so much a part of them that it's like their food, bread and wine. Verses 18 and 19.
The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble.
The path of the righteous, which is the way of wisdom, is like the first rays of light in the morning, which gradually increase to the full light at noonday. With light on his path, a believer can follow straight paths and not be hampered or stumble. By contrast, the way or the path of the wicked is characterized by deep darkness. And the Hebrew word, which I won't try to pronounce, literally means the intense darkness in the middle of the night, which causes one to stumble. Next, we're going to look at the value of wisdom in producing health. That's the 20 through the 27th verses. We'll begin with verses 20 and 22.
My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body.
Another exhortation to hear and pay attention to instruction opens this section. Still trying to get them to pay attention. The author's words were to be in his son's view and in his heart. The major incentive was the offer of life and health. Verse 23.
Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
The heart should be guarded, for out of its wellspring come one's actions. The word heart here means more than just mental or emotional capacity. It also encompasses a person's values. Verses 24 to 27.
Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil.
These verses apply the command to guard one's heart, including what one says and what one does. The mention in verse 24 is mouth and lips, and that's similar to Christ's teaching on the relationship between one's heart and his speech. Perversity comes from, and the Hebrew word is translated crooked. Corrupt or foul talk should never be on the lips of one who trusts the Lord. Each believer should focus his eyes on the wise path, concentrating on it and not being distracted. And his conduct should be upright as he stays on level paths and does not turn aside to evil. Again, paths and ways are used to refer to one's conduct. Proverbs provide both the goal and the route to get there. The goal is successful living, and the route is the way of wisdom. Though wisdom keeps one on the right path, here the encouragement is to keep oneself on the straight way. We're going to move now to chapter 5, and the first part of it is the value of wisdom in preserving from adultery. Evidently, that was a big problem in their day. I guess in all days of all cultures, it might be a problem. Probably not as prominent in church-going people, hopefully, as in others, but evidently adultery was something that was rampant during those days. Specific instruction is given concerning the dangers of the adulteress, the final price of infidelity, and the delights of married love. The reminder is given that sin is ultimately an issue with the Lord. Chapter 5 portrays against the immediate pleasure of sin its long-range consequences. If a person is wise, he sees this long-range view. Verses 1 through 6 of chapter 5.
My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Turn your ear to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion, and your lips may preserve knowledge. For the lips of the adulterous woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths wander aimlessly, but she does not know it.
This chapter, like other portions of Proverbs, begins with the exhortation for the son to pay attention and listen. Listen to his father's words, for doing so will give him discretion and knowledge. Speaking wisdom helps the son ignore the words of an adulteress. Her deceptive, seductive words are persuasive, sweet like honey. And honey was the sweetest substance in ancient Israel. Her words were smooth like olive oil. That was the smoothest substance in ancient Israel. But what seems attractive at first becomes bitter and sharp later. Involvement in adultery is like tasting gall, and that was the bitterest substance that comes from a plant that was known during that time. Or it's like being cut by a double-edged sword. The adulteress leads men to death. Her sin makes her unaware that her ways are crooked. Crooked again is staggering or unstable, in contrast with the straight path mentioned in verse 11 of the previous chapter. Let's look now at verses 7 and 8.
Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house.
Solomon again urges his sons to listen and adhere to what he said. He urged them not to turn from his teachings, but to turn from adulteress, the adulteress. They were not even to go near her house because of the danger of succumbing to her temptations. I've always followed Joseph's rule in this area of my life. When even the appearance of an adulteress or a person, a woman coming on to me, I do like Joseph. I run. And I think that's an appropriate way to deal with it, especially when you're young. Temptations can really be powerful. Now, let's look at verses 9 through 14.
Lest you lose your honor to others and your dignity to one who is cruel, lest strangers feast on your wealth and your toil enrich the house of another. At the end of your life you will groan when your flesh and body are spent. You will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or turn my ear to my instructors, and I was soon in serious trouble in the assembly of God's people.
Failure to keep away from the adulteress can result in many losses. Loss of strength, that can mean your health, your self-respect, or both. Loss of a long life. Loss of money by paying the adulteress. They say paying the husband. I'm not sure I understand that unless he's pimping out his wife. Paying child support or the loss of health. Falling prey to lust also brings remorse when a person recognizes too late that he did not heed his parents. They were called teachers here, heeding their instruction, which inevitably leads to ruin and disgrace before others. Verses 15 to 18.
Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, should your streams of water in the public square, let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth.
The rewards of chastity are a further encouragement to more purity. A cistern, that's a well or springs, streams, a fountain, they control water, keeping it from just flowing into the streets. So marital love is compared to that. Marital love with one's wife is pictured as enjoying one's cistern or fountain. Sexual desires should be controlled and channeled in one's marriage, not wasted as described in Proverbs 5:7-14. Some commentators say that the word them refers to children. Others say it continues the metaphor of streams picturing one's sexual desires. As a person would not get water from his neighbor's cistern because he had his own, so a man should have his physical needs met by his own wife, not someone else's. Verses 19 and 20.
A loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. Why, my son, be intoxicated with another man's wife? Why embrace the bosom of a wayward woman?
The breasts of a man's wife are soft to the touch and graceful in appearance like a deer. Therefore, a husband should be captivated by her love, not affections of an adulteress. By two rhetorical questions, the author pointed up the folly of being captivated by an immoral woman and loving someone else's wife. Let's look at that in verses 21 to 23.
For your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all your paths. The evil deeds of the wicked ensnare them. The cords of their sins hold them fast. For lack of discipline they will die, led astray by their own great folly.
The dire consequences of adultery should motivate a person to avoid it, but for even higher motivations are given in verses 21 to 23. Since God sees man's ways, adultery committed in secret is still known to the Lord. Also, God examines man's conduct. Man cannot escape God's scrutinizing. Thirdly, sin ensnares and ties a person down like ropes. Though people like to talk about being free to sin as they wish, sin actually takes away freedom. Fourth, being undisciplined in one's moral life results in death. Such living is foolish because it leads one astray from God and his standards, And led astray is from the same word that's rendered captivated in verses 19 and 20. The word folly appears 21 times in Proverbs. To yield to sexual lust is folly. We're going to stop there for today. We will pick back up with chapter 6 next time, and we're going to look again at several things that the value of wisdom will preserve us from or bless us with. I hope you're enjoying the study in Proverbs. It's very applicable. There's a lot of it's repetitive, but that's how we learn, by hearing something more than one time. So as we continue to go through it, hopefully we'll gain wisdom that will help us to apply it to our lives and therefore live in a closer walk with our Lord. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.